Welcome, everyone. Good to be with you all. And so tonight, I'd like to start off by asking you, are your chakras aligned? Do you need to get out your crystal and recharge it in the upcoming full moon? If so, you're in the right place. Right place. And so, I'm sorry I said to mess with you guys a little bit. One of the questions my oldest daughter asked me. It's like, Dad, are your chakras aligned? She's having a tough day. She says her chakras are out of alignment. And then we have to get out the crystals and recharge them. I think it's October 9th, this upcoming full moon. Better check that out on your calendar. It's a good time to get out your crystal, and you put it outside, or you put it in your windowsill. Helps to clear the energy, get the negative vibrations off of it, and recharge it in the full moon. Okay, so looks like everyone made it here this evening. A bunch of emailed questions about people wanting to step off of the path. Like, I want to end this thing. Like, can we be done with this spiritual path? And again, I want to just remind everyone, we are, and this is for real now, we're still playing around with Mercury in retrograde, and I'm not the biggest astrologer here, but it's just one of the things I pay attention to. It's a time when communication is off, when things go haywire, when just everything is upside down and backwards. I think I told you all last week that like in one day I hurt my knee, threw out my back and got in a car accident. And I was really reflecting, and I was like, I've never been in a car accident, literally. I mean, maybe when I was 16 once. And so, yeah, it's just like sometimes life is a little wild or wacky and bizarre. And it's good to step back from this and to have, some level of impersonalness, where you just see that, okay, like things come and go here on planet Earth. Like, people get confused. People get confused. Relationships get confused. I mean, human beings just have this incredible ability to confuse each other, to confuse oneself. That's another fun one. And sometimes there's just moments in history, like an astrological time, when things get out of sorts, when your chakras get all jumbled up. And so it's good to step back and smile and trust and know that this too shall pass. This too shall pass. So another question I could ask you is, and again, I'll try to be more serious here. Do you have spiders, cobwebs in your temple? In your temple. And, that's another way of inviting you to look at your shadow. Like, is there any spiders, in the dark corners, maybe behind the altar, in that tough place where it's hard to reach? One of the jobs that I had for my teacher was to build a temple. And after I built the temple, part of my job was to clean the temple. And in the temple, there were a lot of cushions. And it had a hardwood floor. But when you're trying to clean a temple and there's a lot of cushions everywhere and you don't really have a place to put them, sometimes you just kind of, just sweep around everything. You don't take everything out of the temple and clear the house. You just do like a little quick 1-2 job. And sometimes we do that with our life. as we do the quick 1-2 healing with our psychological nature, with our human nature, quick 1-2 healing with how we communicate, and the 1-2 healing, that's kind of glossing it over. Sometimes we don't get to the deeper stuff. We take a quick peek inside. We say, oh yeah, it looks good. Good enough. Let's go forward. Then after a period of time, things tend to build up. On my desk, I have this pile of papers, important business papers, like random tax stuff and, stuff, just like receipts and bills and this and that. I always pay my bills, but, it's just like the receipts, the things that need to get filed away, the to-do list, the things where I need to follow up with people. I have about 800 emails that I haven't gotten to. And so we can look in our shadow. We can look in our temple and see, like, what is our shadow here? Where are the cobwebs? In the temple that I had built for my teacher, with my teacher, like at the top of it was this, like a little glass dome at the very top. And, it was probably 16 feet to get all the way up there. And it's like, how was I going to get up there and get the cobwebs out of that? And so sometimes we need to do a spring cleaning. Sometimes we need to do a fall cleaning. So sometimes we need to go deeper, try a different path, a different way than our normal way. Like when I was young, the only thing I did was just meditate, and meet with my teacher. I thought, if I do these two things, I'm probably pretty good. But then at some point I realized, I probably need to go talk with a professional, like a psychologist, to hone in on some stuff. Didn't want to burden my teacher with too much of my shadow. And so, there'd be times when I would meet, for a year or two, weekly with a psychologist, a counselor. And then there'd be times when there were things, again, that needed a different approach, where I needed to get body work done and chiropractics, acupuncture, cranial sacral work. There's a particular way in which the body holds itself, where it holds like a sense of egoic habit, egoic defendedness and guardedness. And sometimes meeting with your spiritual teacher isn't the best way to address that. Sometimes the best way to address it is a bubble bath, literally. Sometimes the best way is to go to cranial sacral and allow someone to hold you. And they hold the back of your skull or the bottoms of your feet. Or I found this lovely woman in Savannah that I am going to. And it's a very talented healer. And as she's helping me with my long COVID, it's interesting. She has this great connection to the trees. The trees speak to her. And I was in her office and I saw this picture of a giant redwood in, I think it's Jedediah State Park in Northern California. And she's in Savannah. And I said, gosh, that's a beautiful picture. And she said, oh yeah, that tree came to me in a dream. I said, oh, it did. Wow, that's amazing. And she said, yeah. And then I had to drive from Savannah. She drove all the way cross country. She drove through Durango, Colorado, which I thought was great, and all the way to Northern California and walked around the woods till she found this tree. But the tree was speaking to her, telling her where to go. And I could feel it, like I could feel like the roots of the trees working through her hands, and where she's helping to untangle things from previous incarnations and ancestral stuff, helping me get untangled from my ancestors, because it's a pretty rough ancestors, incarnated into a rough family system. But I was really touched by her ability to listen. I'm not certain if a tree came to me in a dream and I'd go off, to find that tree, to meet with that tree in person. I mean, maybe there was a powerful goddess tree. I would. And see, sometimes, like when we have these cobwebs in our temple, the temple being our body, we need to call upon some outside support. At other times, God does this funny game where all the outside support fails us, and life is wanting us to figure it out on our own. To not give in to despair, but rather to believe in ourselves, to believe in our strength and our power and our divinity, not in our egoic nature, not in our egoic will, not in our judge or our critic, but to believe in our own humility, our own strength, our own Christ-like nature. I can tell you it's a frustrating thing when you have good support. My teacher was great support for me. But sometimes they let you down, and they're supposed to let you down, like God makes them let you down. Because God is wanting you to find the thing you're reaching for within your own heart. Within your own heart. This path, it is such a crazy thing, being a human and having to suffer with sickness, with old age, with relationship, with finance. Like, that's a whole thing. Connecting to support is what finance is. And sometimes our financial reality dries up. And can we continue to have faith and hope and not fall into egoic despair? And again, this path is so utterly challenging. Sometimes I look at God and say, can you give us all a break, Lord? You see, it is hard enough here on planet Earth. And so that's why we find ourselves sometimes in a New Age bookstore buying crystals. I wish I had one around here. My crystal that I need to go recharge my crystal. All I have right here is a Shiva lingam. This thing keeps me nice and grounded. I like it that I got a big one. Some are I've seen these like 3 feet tall before. And sometimes people have really big ones if you go to the New Age Gem and Mineral show. But like most of us on the path, like we get to these points where we're like, can I get a little something? Like, yeah, I'll try the crystal. I'll try the tarot reading. I'll try standing on my head. Like how many of us have done that? How many of us have stood on our head? Said, okay, like well, this yoga handstand, this is going to make me enlightened somehow, isn't it? It's going to help with something. I think it's going to help with something. And as human beings, like we all want some relief. Some relief. We want a friend on the path. We want a friend in Jesus. Like we want a human friend, and then we want Jesus to come into our life. A great master. I think in the Kundalini group, I was speaking about calling forth your angels. Your angels to be with you, to lead you, to guide you. To whisper the truth into your ear. I can't tell you how many times I've been alone, just sitting in states of just utter despair. And my angel just comes forward and just whispered a little something sweet in my ear. I'm like, oh, thank God I don't have to believe in this despair. I don't have to end my life. I don't have to jump off. I don't think I'd jump off a bridge. I think I'd jump off a cliff. It's what I would do. And it'd be more my style, just out in the woods somewhere. It's like we get to these points in life. We get to these points when it's just so utterly hard. So utterly hard. And so, of course, we're going to buy the next, spiritual book that comes out that tells you the 1, 2, 3 steps to enlightenment. Of course, of course, we're going to do that. Of course. Like we try all these things. All these things. Of course we do. And when I'm on YouTube and I listen to a video, I get all these ads from like these new age teachers. Like it's basically how to become ultra enlightened and ultra rich at the same time. And then after that, it wants me to drink some fake coffee drink that tastes like mud or something. Like, okay, this is what's being advertised for me. This is what YouTube has me pegged down to. I don't drink coffee, and I don't need anything that tastes like mud. I've got enough. I've got a glass full of Ayurvedic herbs right here. And of course, like this is the game of the ego. It just wants like some quick trick. Some quick trick to speed this path up. And unfortunately, like I'm the fellow who says there's no quick trick. If there is a quick trick, it's coming into your heart. That's the quick truth. If you want to speed up on the spiritual path, is getting out of your head and coming into your heart, the goodness of your heart, the quiet love and innocence of our heart. Now, for many of us, when we come into our heart, the first thing we feel is pain or sadness or heartache. And then I encourage you to take a deep breath and go deeper. deep into the hara. Because in order to discover this love that I speak about, this endless love, this space of immense freedom, light, and bliss, in order to truly discover this love, if you don't find it immediately, you need to come into your hara and connect with a sense of strength and power. We need to connect to Buddha nature, which has the willingness to actually look at our heart and say, what's going on here in this heart? I know my heart is good, but right now it feels troubled. And it's the energy of the hara that is strong enough to sit with a troubled heart, that is strong enough to breathe into a troubled heart and to feel the pain, and to let that pain shake off. And that may take one breath, it may take 10, it may take 10,000, it may take 10,000 breaths. It may take 10,000 breaths. And I've been sitting with my long COVID and saying, all right, it's still here. Like, what's going on with you? What's going on with you, Mister? How can I help you? How can I love you more deeply? And what I've continued to be shown is this affliction that I have that, I label long COVID. But I continue to be shown is that this is a time for me to do deep ancestral work of clearing out my past, clearing out the entanglement of this body that I have, how it's entangled with my ancestors. And so I can call it healing long COVID or healing ancestral karma. But as I sit and I feel into, the experience of the body, all this old painful memories and experiences of my ancestors have been coming forward. And my ancestors, like most of us, my ancestors were impoverished, incredibly impoverished. And they carried this great weight and this great suffering. But it's through the willingness of connecting to the energy of the hara, this deep, quiet, humble peace. But a peace, so deep, so humble, it descends and merges into the earth itself. It has the power of the eternal. The power of the eternal is the willingness to sit with something for as long as it takes. For as long as it takes. As long as it takes. And so you'll find on the spiritual path that sometimes God gives you an affliction or a constriction of your chakras. And we can try to transcend that. We can try just to step back and look at it. We can say it's not real. And again, if that heals it, beautiful. If that makes it disappear, beautiful. But for most of us, Life is urging us to be intimately connected with it, to it. The ego wants to disassociate from pain, wants to run in the opposite direction of pain. But the one who is free, the one who is awake, looks at suffering and is curious. Is curious. Like this is what the Buddha was curious about. He said, I want to be free of suffering. So he had to be curious about it. He had to be curious about the nature of his own mind. And when you're curious about the nature of your own mind, you become like a psychologist and you see, oh yeah, my mind is the one mind. Everyone has this mind. It runs from that which feels unpleasant. It runs toward that which feels pleasant. It's eternally looking for short-term happiness. But the more we look for short-term happiness, the more we create long-term pain for ourselves. You know, I was just out walking, my two little friends, Doodles and Buster, and I saw this fella down the street smoking. Again, I'm still shocked that people still smoke cigarettes or drink soda pop, but they do that here in the South a lot more than they did in Colorado. But and I saw this fella down the street, and I saw him smoking a cigarette, and I just, it's because of the way I'm wired. I can see into people and kind of see their karma, and I can see what's going on with them. And I saw that he was just out there in his, Sunday evening, and I saw that he was like feeling a little agitated, but as he like took a drag, I think that's what it's called, right? A drag, a drawl, just smoking in as he inhaled with his cigarette. I saw his body just relaxing a little bit for a couple seconds. But then simultaneously, I saw the pain that he was carrying, that he was avoiding, like deepening, becoming larger. And like, this is how the ego works. It's like, okay, we have another chocolate chip cookie or whatever it is, however it is, we stuff our pain. We ignore ourselves. And the karma is just like building and building in this separate reservoir. But again, like most egos, like people, they live on the surface. And on the surface, just like, just give me some relief, just right now. Right now. Right now. Like whatever it is, just like give it to me. And whether we're addicted to a cell phone or a cigarette, or I wish I knew a good TV show. I do know a good TV show. We're addicted to like the latest TV show on Netflix. And again, it's like there's nothing wrong with watching a show every now and then. It's just if we're using it to avoid. Because when we avoid what's here, whether it's pain, sadness, suffering, heartache, despair, fear, but we're also simultaneously avoiding the immense beauty and spaciousness and light and love, the radiance of our own heart. I went out the other morning and I saw just the crescent moon. I was like, oh my Lord, it is so beautiful. So beautiful. The crescent moon. So beautiful. And as I was driving over this bridge. There's a bridge I go over to get to the nearest island. And my wife's always yelling at me like, you need to watch the road. Because I'm always looking around at the natural beauty. And I was looking out in the ocean. I just saw all these dolphins out there just swimming and playing, dancing around. But so many of us are so utterly asleep that we miss the absolute beauty of life. And there's this wonderful tantric equation that goes something like this. The more willing you are to feel and experience what's within you, especially the cobwebs, the spiders in your temple, especially your shadow and your wound, your heartache and your despair, the more willing you are to feel and meet your own pain with intimacy, the more fully your heart opens, the more beauty and divinity and light and love and spaciousness and peace that you're able to see. The more fully willing you are to be with yourself, all of yourself, the more fully your heart wakes up and you see beauty and divinity everywhere. Beauty and divinity everywhere. So most of us, we try to get to divinity through avoidance of pain. And that's a fair approach. I tried it. But what I found was the more I avoided my life, the more heavy I felt. The more depressed I felt, the more despairing I felt, the more closed off, inwardly divided I felt. And I always go to my teacher with, why does it open in such a big way when I'm here with you? But when I'm just home alone, I feel so closed off and shut down. And he'd ask, well, what are you avoiding when you're home alone? What's there that you don't want to see? For some of us, it's simply that we purely don't honor ourselves. Like we honor the guru, but we don't honor our own self. I was with someone the other day, I can't even remember who it was. And, I asked her if she knew how big she was. She was such a big soul, just so huge. It's like shocking how big she was. It's like just this immense mountain of light. But she had spent her whole life ignoring this, denying it. And that brought up the feeling of depression. And that shows your heart is working. Like if you If you're a giant bright light and you ignore that, you should feel depressed because that's your heart telling you, like communicating to you, hey, you're not seeing clearly. Your truth is to be huge, not small. Not small. And so if you deny yourself, if you ignore yourself, if you ignore the beauty and the humility, the goodness of your heart. A lot of people do this when they date. They deny their beauty and say, oh, I need to go find someone else who will come and tell me how beautiful I am. I'll tell you a funny story, a funny game I play at my house. Sometimes my wife will tell me, you're so big and handsome. I say, I know. I know. I know. I know it. I know it. I'm not that handsome, I'm not that big, but I know it in my heart that I am. That what this soul is good. I'm pretty rough around the edges, but I know like this soul that I am is good, is good, is good, is good. And so I ask this of each of you, do you know how beautiful you are, how good you are, how holy you are, how divine you are, how radiant you are? Or do we simply identify with our egoic pain and allow that to define us? I could easily be defined by my body right now. And if I was defined by my body, I'd say, oh my God, this thing is in so much pain and there's so much fatigue here. And oh, geez, it's really hurting. It's really hurting. This thing I am is hurting so bad. And I could allow that to be the end of what I am. The totality of what I am. But when I look deeper under the surface of the body, I see there's something great here. Just as when I look in each of you, I see there's something great here, something immense. I see gods and goddesses. I see great beings of light. Great beings of light. I see tremendous humility and kindness and compassion. I see in some of you that fireworks are going off. Fireworks, because you have so much light within you. And my question to you is do you know that? Do you know what you are? Do you see fully what you are? Sometimes, like if we circle back to that question I asked about, are there spiders in your temple? Like some of us, we look inside, we say, oh yeah, there's spiders in my temple. Oh yeah, I am bad. I see, I knew it. I'm bad. I'm dirty. I'm rotten. And so it's like, please don't go there. That's where the Catholic Church might take you. The old Catholic Church. The new Catholic Church, I think they're trying. They're trying. I heard this thing on a podcast the other day. I hope it's true. With in the Vatican, like they have a council getting together for that's investigating like all these UFOs that have been reported, and the Vatican's like trying to hurry up and get with the times and get some news story about Jesus like being an interstellar being or something, and so they're trying to stay ahead of the curve, so that Jesus isn't replaced by the Pleiadians or something. So that made me smile. That made me smile. So it's like, what's going on? What's going on in our temple? What's going on? Are we guarded? Are we defended? And by all means, like when we do our shadow work, please do it with a big open heart. Because again, some of us, we're limited. We allow our shadow to define us instead of just acknowledging, yeah, like there's that there. And I need to do some healing work around this. I need to give that some attention, and rightly so. But the trick on this path is to fully identify with that which is essential about you, that which does not come and go, that which is not connected to a name or a form or a body, or a recent dance of karma, but rather to know yourself as the eternal. And when you're willing to know yourself as the eternal, you have so much more resources and compassion and love for the human, for the parts that are less than, for the parts that are confused. And so anyways, okay. So I have two questions. Let me just see. There are two questions that are kind of similar. And they're about stepping off the path, like getting off the path. And I'm going to respond to both these individuals. If you're trying to step off the path, your chakras are not aligned. I'm sorry. If you're trying to step off the path, of course, that's not the way. But let's look at this. Let's look at this. I want to read the question. Craig, I wanted to reach out and ask for your advice. Lately, I've been trying to lead a more normal life away from spirituality, but have had some recent advances in awarenesses that are pretty overwhelming. This is leading to high amounts of energy in my body, intense insomnia, and depersonalized states of mind, feeling kinda detached from reality, etc. The thing is, I'm not ready for an awakening and want to live normally. I don't want more chakra activation, all right, which I've experienced, and spiritual symptoms. I understand that this is counterintuitive in your work. But my question is, what can I do to regress back to normal a little? Okay, I like that because he writes a little. So look, the big thing here, Jake, is to get grounded, my friend. And so sometimes if we have too much energy in the body, it's because we are doing some form of spirituality that excites the energy. And so the next question is, it's been 4 years since my kundalini awakened. I have issues with having to clear negative energy, and I regularly, however you say that, have very physical disruptive kriyas. A family member suggested that I discontinue from all spiritual practices because when she did this after experiencing some spiritual activity, it stopped completely. I meditate regularly. I do focus on my spiritual growth. What else would be effective in stopping all spiritual activity? What would be the effect of stopping all spiritual activity altogether? Okay. I sense it might be problematic. Yeah, so I'm going to combine these two questions together. So if we have way too much energy in our nervous system, the best thing for you to do is to spend time laying down on the earth. connecting to the hugeness of the earth and getting yourself grounded. Beyond this, physical exercise is good. And a physical yoga practice without pranayama. So I'd say cut out any and all pranayama. Cut out any and all chanting. Cut out any and all mantras. But I would never tell you to disconnect from your heart. Like the spiritual path is about you connecting to your heart, to your strength, to your power. This is what the spiritual path is about. This is what normal human life is about. If you're here on planet Earth and you are not connected to your heart, not connected to your power, not sharing your gifts here on planet Earth, you're probably going to feel somewhat confused, sad, depressed, hurting, lost. It's going to cause you suffering. That's what got you on this path to begin with, because you wanted something more. So sometimes we do spiritual practices, and Jake and Tracy, I don't know if I've met with either of you. If we have met, forgive me, but I just don't see your last names here. Like sometimes we do practices that just really excite our energy. You know, if I listen to Krishna Das and start chanting for the next 4 hours, I'm probably not going to sleep tonight. And so I don't do much of that anymore. Like if I teach satsang every night, I'm probably not going to sleep much. And so I only teach it satsang and then do a meditation twice a week, and then I get to sleep the rest of the nights. But you know, so we want to, you know, if you do your practices in the morning, if you do some walking, like walking meditation, that can be helpful. If you do some inquiry and just inquire into your own body and asking your body, because in a sense, like this is a question of energy mastery for your own self. Like, where is the energy getting amped up in my body, in my nervous system? Like I can tell you, cut out all those things, but there's something specific that's happening in you. And it could be purely that you're doing some type of practice, or it could purely be that God has ordained it. God says, now's the time. I'm awakening in you, whether you like it or not. So you can get with the program, or you can fight the program. But again, I don't know what's going on in either of you. I can tell you, get grounded, eat heavy foods. You know, sometimes I'll say this, if there's something really off in your life, like say energy starts to wake up in your body, like the energy of spiritual awakening, and there's something really off in, let's say your solar plexus, where you have an intense will and you're always fighting with others, fighting with yourself, judging yourself, attacking others, judging others, then this energy of awakening, which may just want to wake up in your root, go into your second chakra, then into your third, then your fourth and fifth, and once you just flow up the spine, when it gets to your third chakra center, it can't flow through that center. So it shoots to the right or it shoots to the left. Energy gets stuck in your back. It creates all this anxiety and fear, and you can't sleep. But it's not, it may not be because you're doing spiritual practices. It may be because you're so psychologically confused or contracted in this one particular center that is causing a problem for the energy, which would naturally flow and not be a problem. I hope I said that in a way that made sense. Like sometimes the practices we're doing are perfect, but we need an additional practice, or we need to inquire into, like, what's going on in my third chakra that's causing all this anxiety and fear. And this anxiety and fear is causing the kundalini not to flow, and you're causing it to flow in the wrong direction or wrong channel, causing me to lose sleep all night or have panic attacks or whatever. Or just feeling overwhelmed. Like, in order to feel overwhelmed, we have to be disconnected from Buddha nature. If you don't want to be overwhelmed, I could tell you, don't do any spiritual practices. And if that stops it, great. But I don't want to tell you that. I don't think that's the truth. If we're feeling overwhelmed, that's a pointer to us. That's our body telling you that you are not connected to Buddha nature. For when we are connected to Buddha nature, that's the energy of the hara. When the hara is fully open, let's throw the solar plexus in there too. The solar plexus is fully open. The root chakra is fully open. When Buddha nature is established and online, we don't get overwhelmed. We can experience pain. We can experience things that, I'll use this word, are overwhelming. They have the feeling of being overwhelming. But our nature does not get overwhelmed. I hope that distinction makes sense. And so again, I'm going to look at this differently than, how to get off the path or how to slow things down. I'm the kind of guy who wants that Band-Aid ripped off quickly. I don't want someone to take 30 years to rip that thing off. I want it to be ripped off quickly. But, if you're really struggling, like Jake, with you have the first question here, with feeling really detached, feeling insomnia, what else was it? Depersonalized states, high amounts of energy in the body. I would look at how I can open the body more fully so that this energy can flow fluidly out of me or through me. So the energy is not a problem. That's how I would go about it. I wouldn't look at shutting this thing down. There's this old Zen saying, and I saw this just growing up in the country. Like, if you have a bull, if you have a horse, like where I used to live in the Four Corners area, Colorado, Arizona, Utah, New Mexico, when I drive across the desert, there'd be all these wild horses, just all these wild Mustangs just out, just running and running. Like, literally just see them as, I see more horses than deer, just wild ones. And I knew some cowboys, and they used to go capture some of these Mustangs, and they bring them back because a lot of these horses they're starving to death out in the Southwest because of there's just not enough food for them, not enough water, and they starve to death. It's a terrible thing. And so an old friend, acquaintance of mine, he used to go capture them. He was this rough and tough cowboy named Yahoo, a good cowboy name. And he'd capture them and he'd bring them back to this ranch. And he'd have to put him in a little pen. Boy, that horse, he'd be careful because that horse would just break its legs, just kicking the pen because it had never been confined before. But like the old Zen saying goes, like if you have like all this energy confined, like if you have a bull that's confined and it's losing its mind, open the gate and let it run out in the big field. And it will kick, and he and haw and, snort and, make all kinds of sounds, but it'll do be the bucking buckaroo out there. And it'll just buck and buck and buck. And then finally, if you come out and look at that horse or that bull in an hour, it'll be so utterly relaxed. Just out there eating some grass. Just be so utterly relaxed. And see, Jake, you're saying, like, what do I do with all this energy? How do I turn it off? Like one of the ways we, like quote unquote, turn kundalini off is through radically opening. When we radically open, we don't turn kundalini off, but there's enough space. Like when you open to the spaciousness of your nature, the hugeness of your nature. And this is true with an emotion too. It doesn't have to be just kundalini. But when you give something that feels contained and pressurized, when you give it a ridiculous amount of energy, that thing will buck and kick and snort and whine and rage, and it'll do its whole wild dance. And then eventually it will burn itself out, will completely calm down and find itself in a space of unity. Of unity. And so that's what I'm going to invite for you, Jake. This is what I'm going to invite for you too, Tracy. Tracy asks, like, what would be the effect of stopping all spiritual activity altogether? Sometimes when we're really open and we stop all of our practices, sometimes the energy is just like all the kundalini and the energy and whatever, just kind of everything just chills out. Sometimes it becomes really pressurized. And the kundalini gets real upset with you, like, hey, you were meditating 3 hours a day for the last 4 years. Now you stopped everything altogether. And you might find this energy just continues to come online, but it has no place to flow because you're not opening to space. And that can create all kinds of disasters within your consciousness. And again, it's normally just going to be a feeling of pressure and anxiety, agitation, irritability, these types of things. So that's kind of a fun question. Like, what's the effect of stopping the spiritual path? Chogyam Trungpa said something great. And he said, like, if you're on a train, like in theory, like, you get it on in New York City and you're going to LA. But if LA is the land of enlightenment, not New York City, but LA. So if you start in New York and then you get off, like in St. Louis, like you have all this training, you've opened a bunch. But if you get off in St. Louis, you might find yourself really confused, kind of depressed. Like you can't really go back to sleep. And if you get off the spiritual path halfway, you're probably going to feel pretty lost. Because there's a greater way to live, a greater way to be. And it's just going to haunt you, this thing. Some people do that. A lot of people do it. A lot of people, especially with the internet, you can spend a lot of time watching kitty cat videos. I watched one the other day. It was somehow there's these videos that pop up on my feed of people who have like pumas, like mountain lions. They're not kitty cats, they're big cats, you know, who have like a puma as a pet. I have no idea why they pop up my feed, but they do, maybe because I click on them. They're distracting. I saw someone the other day put their finger in a puma's mouth. It's like, whoa. But it didn't need it. It didn't need their finger. So even I get distracted on the internet sometimes by a big, beautiful cat. Anyways, okay, here's another question. I'm just going to keep going with the email questions and we'll get to some live questions. This is a fun one. Hi, Craig. I've been struggling lately with confusion related to my relationship. It was a beautiful relationship when it is a beautiful relationship when I see clearly and feel connected. But lately I feel upset a lot. And some shadow parts of myself have come up. Like, this is so good. This is what relationship is. This is one of the great gifts of relationship. Sometimes I get lost in stories about breaking up. Good. Like, see, like a story of breaking up is simply the fight or flight response. And so you're seeing this in real time. You're seeing that the relationship is pushing your buttons, bringing forth shadows. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. That's what a relationship is supposed to do. People think a relationship is supposed to be the partner serving you. Just serving you. I'm sorry. I'm cracking myself up. So I went to a jiu-jitsu workshop yesterday with Master Pedro Sawyer. He's done jiu-jitsu for like 50 years. He's an incredible being. And afterwards, we all went out to lunch. And my teacher, who's a good friend of Pedro's, like they kind of grew up together. His wife, like he handed her a plate of food and like she dropped it. She dropped her food. It knocked over her water. My wife jumped up, helped out, cleaned it up and everything. But afterwards, my teacher, like he got up, we were having like, it was a little bit of a party situation, but he got up afterwards. My teacher, he is like the energy of the coyote. He's just a wild man. He's someone who is incredibly offensive. He's a very offensive individual, but he got up and he said, everyone, please, everyone, I need your full attention now. And he said, on Jesus's last day, at the Last Supper, when he was handing out food to everyone on plates, when Jesus hands the food to you, do you use one hand or two hands to hold the plate of food that Christ is giving you? And I was going like, what the hell is he talking about? Like he's giving us a sermon all of a sudden. And then I realized he got up, he had everyone look at his wife, making fun of his wife for dropping her food. And I was just like, stop this. Stop saying this. What the hell's wrong with you? But like, this is what we do in relationship. Is we attack each other, we poke fun at each other, we press each other's buttons, we drive each other crazy. But she smiled, like she smiled, she was laughing because she, they've been together for a long time. So she knows his games. Like the only way she could be married to this fella. Yes, she does have a great deal of patience and humor, but like, see, we have to be willing to roll and flow and smile and laugh when someone pokes us. But if we get so upset, like we miss the beauty. Basically he's calling his wife a klutz. And like sometimes like we're just a klutz and we need people to be like, hey, get in your body. Get in your body, like get your consciousness here. Get it here. And sometimes our partner says that to us in a less than eloquent way. And it pisses us off and we walk away upset. But the beautiful thing about getting upset is when we are upset, we're spending a lot of time thinking about what happened. Now, the problem when we're upset is oftentimes we're blaming the other person. But one of the great gifts that my teacher used to do with me is I used to do the same thing. I'd say, teacher, this is my former wife. My former wife did this and this and this and this and this and this. And he'd say, what'd you do, Craig? And I'm like, no. Now what did I do? She did this. She did this. And he said, what did you do? I don't want to talk about what I did. I want to think about what she did. What did you do, Craig? What is your part in this? Is it 10% true what she's saying? Is it 80% true? And see, the beautiful thing about relationship is like your partner will tell you, will point it out. Hey, there's your spiders. They're over there right behind your heart. There's some cobwebs down in your heart. Oh, how about that throat chakra? You certainly don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to communicate. You don't know how to hear me, see me, love me. And so they point these things out. And we can get offended. That's the normal thing. Or we can reflect and say, by golly, you're right. You're right. I do that. I did mess that up. I was confused. Thank you so much for telling me that I'm a klutz. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So the thing about breaking up, like everyone who's in long-term relationship has thoughts of ending it, just getting out of here. The grass is always greener, or geez, I just need to get out of this car, get away from this person. I think I told everyone last week that someone I know tried to kill their husband. It's like, how crazy is that? I laugh because, again, like, these are very human thoughts. Very human thoughts. It's like anytime we think we are so holy, just spend a little time in a relationship. I tried driving across country, tried living in a van with someone. Like, I love all these people post online van life, pictures of how awesome it is. And it's like, I know y'all are fighting in that van. Like, I know y'all are fighting in there. And then if it's just some lonely dude if it's just some like, young hipster dude, like in a van, I know you're lonely in that van. Like, I don't care what beach you're at. I know you're lonely. I know you are. I know you want just to have a home and some roots. And so this is the game. This is the game that our ego has us entrapped in. The grass is greener. I need to be somewhere where there is no pain. And I can tell you, like, this place where there is no pain, it does not exist in a permanent way if one has a human body. Now, when we're in heaven, like we can be in blissful states for eternity. But as long as you have a human form, at some point you're going to stub your toe. I mean, heck, last Sunday I was at a beach and I stepped on 2 cactuses. It's like, I was trying to go to paradise and I stepped on 2 cactuses and then had sand thrown in my eyes by my beautiful little girl. Okay. Let's see some questions popping up here in the chat. Craig, I want to surrender more to God, give more, offer more, be more, expand and empty. But my old patterns keep getting in the way. I'm expressing a deep desire more than asking a question, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, my old patterns keep getting in the way. So, Kyle, does your expansion include your old patterns? Like sometimes we try to expand as a way of denying ourselves. Like if you want to give more, offer more, be more. Let's start with that last one. Can you be more loving to your old patterns? And Kyle, like when I look into you, your old patterns here, my friend. Like, come on, like you're not a bad guy. Can you love you? Like these old patterns are absolutely worthy of love. Absolutely. These aren't to be ignored or denied, or we don't need to hurry up and get rid of these old patterns. You can smile at them, hug them, hold them, get to know them more fully. But I'll go a step further and say these patterns aren't stopping you from expanding. They're actually inviting you to expand. And so let's start by expanding in loving embrace of these patterns. To meet your humanity with kindness and love. To meet your humanity with kindness and love. I think that's a good place to start. Hi, Craig. I am working through huge, dark, ancestral, personal, and collective wounds. Often it feels like my magnificent being, including my purpose, is just a sliver away. Is that right? Sliver away. And it pops up frequently. I am then in so much warm bliss and know it once again how beautiful I am. Just to find myself having all the conditioning coming up that suggested my unworthiness, being a failure and not worthy of my own and others' life. How to work with that in the most loving way? Well, I'm going to say the same thing I said to Kaya. If we have any aspect of us that feels like a failure, that's a great thing. Failure, like egoic failure, that is the biggest doorway to freedom. I encourage you to ride that wave of failure. Just acknowledging, I failed. Like I really screwed up. Like I cannot do this. This egoic nature, cannot do life. That's true. That's absolutely true. All of our egos are failures. They're supposed to be failures. The people who have all that success, they just get entrapped in the world and their own ego much, much longer. But when you really know, like I can remember the day I figured this out. Oh my gosh, I'm going to just say it, even though the YouTube gods won't like, it's like a total, just completely fucked up, total fucking failure in every different direction. Like I fucked this life up, like in every way, every way. And when you know that, it's finally at this point when you begin to lose faith in your mind that tries to control, that tries to do, that tries to get it all right. And when you let the whole thing fail, like really fail, and you fall on your knees, oftentimes you laugh like hysterically, like, oh my God, of course, of course, of course my ego failed. And as the ego breaks and crumbles, you actually begin to see how beautiful and brilliant and holy your heart is. You see that your heart could never be a failure. The egoic conditioning, like the egoic response, almost always is a failure. But that heart of yours is so bright, so beautiful, so holy and divine. And we have to be careful. Like sometimes the mind, it thinks way too much. Where it says, I'm a failure, and then therefore I am unworthy. No. Like let's not go down that road with that type of math. This ego that I have is failing, and it doesn't know what to do, and it gets so confused and so lost. But this essence that I am, this heart that I am, is so innocent, is so pure, is so holy. So holy. And so we want the ego to fail. We want it to stop guarding us and defending us in a way that guards us and divides us from our own heart. When the ego truly fails, it begins to crumble. We can actually see our heart. We can see something that is beyond worthy. Beyond worthy. Okay. Ben's writing to me. Craig, did you mean to say give it a ridiculous amount of space instead of energy? Yeah, Ben, I'll let you correct me. Probably so. I'm dyslexic. So like that's one of my great failures. I'm dyslexic. I just get my words mixed up. I get them so mixed up, and I'm not eloquent. And yeah, let's give it lots of space. If we're going to give anything lots of energy, the energy is going to be love. Love. Terry writes, I'm going on a trip with my high end in an RV next week. With my husband. Yeah, next week. Yeah. Have fun. Have fun, Terry. Have fun. I remember a fella, he told me, this was many years ago. This is before #van life was a thing. And he had a big RV, and he was taking his wife and his kids, and I think his mother-in-law. And they were going to go on some big trip, out in the desert somewhere. And he drove out there. I think they went to like Lake Powell or something when it had water in it, and had like this great time. And it's like day 4 or 5 on the trip. He's like, oh my God, everyone started fighting with each other, picking on each other, and he was like, this is a disaster. He said, okay, everyone, like, we're going to go home a day early. And he said he could not drive that thing fast enough just to get everybody home, just to get them the hell out of that RV, and just to get some space, from each other, to get some space. And see, it's funny, like so many things in the realm of advertising are sold, like with the intention of giving us greater freedom. Greater freedom. You can't sell freedom. Can't sell freedom. Like it's not going to come in a device. It's not going to come in a computer. It's not going to come in a new Lexus. Or they have all these commercials of pickup trucks and Jeeps, and they drive around where I go rock climbing in Utah, and they're just selling, trying to sell freedom and getting a Jeep or getting a truck. And most people buy those trucks, Jeeps, and drive them around in a city somewhere. It's like, it's not going to be like that on the commercial. Like, if you want that experience, go out in the desert by yourself. Go walk the beach by yourself. Go walk in nature by yourself. Go climb a mountain by yourself. Go spend some time, a great deal of time in silence. In silence. And so good to be with you all. I thought I saw a hand up, but maybe I scared someone away. And so I hope all of you, that your chakras are aligned, are fully aligned, from above your head to below your feet. That all, let's say all 15 chakras, let's add them up, are aligned. And if you're feeling a little bit out of whack, get that crystal out, put it out in the moonlight in the coming weeks. Good night, everyone. So good to be with you. See you next time.